When success drives power mad, how economic growth fuels authoritarian aggression. Japan, Germany, Russia. Imagine a state that has just broken free from poverty. Wages are rising, factories are running 3 shifts, cities gleam with new bridges, and newspapers scream headlines about a historic rebirth. In such moments, society easily mistakes prosperity for the infallibility of power. If the leadership is authoritarian, lacking checks and balances or a genuine rotation of elites, success becomes a drug rather than a cure. What often follows is a familiar script: economic boom, to cult of strength, to militarization, to we need new lands, grandeur, or revenge, to war. This is not historical mysticism. It is a recurring mechanism seen across different countries and eras. Let's examine 3 examples as a popular science narrative, complete with facts, figures, and historical analogies. Japan. Modernization turned into imperial fever. In the second half of the 19th century, Japan made a sharp turn. Following the Meiji Restoration after 1868, the state purposefully adopted Western management practices, industrial technologies, and military organization. The result was a rapid acceleration of economic dynamics. According to Madison's historical GDP reconstructions, Japan's real GDP per capita grew by about 1.4% annually between 1870 and 1913, an exceptionally high rate for that era. As the economy grew muscle, so did the military machine. Japan quickly shifted from the logic of catching up with the West to becoming the West, that is, an empire. A chain of external expansion followed. Korea was first turned into a protectorate and then annexed by Japan in 1910. This was sold to society as a historic mission and security. In practice, modernization combined with national pride and a cult of the army created a volatile mix where success blinded reason. Further militarization led to increasingly harsh decisions in Asia, eventually pulling Japan into World War II. The end is well known: a catastrophic defeat, including the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, followed by occupation. Nazi Germany, an economic miracle as fuel for revenge. Germany in the 1930s was a society traumatized by defeat in World War I and economic crisis. On this soil emerged an authoritarian leader promising order, jobs, and the return of greatness. Some economic indicators did look like a rescue, becoming the primary argument for propaganda. One striking figure: economic history research shows that unemployment in Germany dropped from over 6 million, about 34% in January 1933, to approximately 2.4 million, 13.5% in 1934. This is often framed as regime efficiency. However, it is vital to see the flip side. The recovery was tied to militarization, mobilization programs, and the suppression of workers' rights. Data shows real wages fell by roughly 25% between 1933 and 1938. How Germany became an aggressor. State tuning for war, 1933 to 1939. The most dangerous aspect of the Nazi takeover was that it appeared legal. The key node was the Enabling Act, March 23, 1933, which gave the government the right to pass laws without parliament, effectively turning off checks and balances. This created what historians called Gleichschaltung, or coordination or synchronization, the subordination of state and society to a single party line, the purging of institutions, and control over regions, administration, culture, and education. To prepare for war, the regime had to eliminate internal threats, even its own. A symbolic moment was the Night of the Long Knives, June 30, 1934, a purge that destroyed competitors, strengthened Hitler and the SS, and pacified the army. Now, controllability was guaranteed. This was followed by a massive reprogramming of the economy for war, defense contracts, cater training, and the cultivation of an enemy image. In the short term, this provided the illusion of efficiency, but in essence, the state was spending its future on a war machine. How the West appeased the aggressor, the logic of concessions. After World War I, Europe was psychologically broken. British and French politicians thought, we must avoid a repeat of the 1914-18 slaughterhouse. If we give Germany part of what it demands, it will settle down. Perhaps Hitler is only a radical in rhetoric. Realpolitik will become pragmatic. This is appeasement. The problem is that it only works if the other side has limits. Nazi ideology had no built-in limits. 1935. Britain legitimizes the violation of naval limits. The Anglo-German Naval Agreement, June 18, 1935, set a rule that the German fleet could have 35% of the Royal Navy's tonnage. It was seen as managed rearmament, better to agree than to conflict. Effectively, it was a recognition of Germany's right to rearm. 1938. Munich, ceding an Allies' territory for peace. The Munich Agreement, September 30, 1938, allowed Germany to annex the Sudetenland of Czechoslovakia. The country was treated as a bargaining chip to prevent war now. It was catastrophic. The concession didn't sate the appetite. It showed that blackmail worked and gave Germany strategic resources. Why appeasement is doomed with an authoritarian aggressor. The West's mistake was not goodwill, but a flawed model of the opponent. Democracies thought, we concede and we get stability. The Nazi regime acted on the logic, they conceded, therefore they are weak, we push further. Russia, oil and gas boom as a resource for cementing the regime. Russia emerged from a deep crisis in the late 1990s. Then came a period of stabilization, largely due to a favorable commodity cycle. Between 2000 and 2008, the Russian economy received a massive boost from high resource prices. GDP growth was fast, and poverty dropped significantly, from about 30% in 2000 to roughly 14% in 2008. Phase A, 1999 to 2008, rapid growth plus legitimacy through strength. World Bank data shows the Russian economy grew by an average of 7% per year from 1999 to 2007. Simultaneously, strongman politics became the source of popularity. Putin's ratings spiked in 1999 amid harsh military rhetoric and actions in Chechnya. The mechanics, money, plus a sense of rising from our knees, plus a cult of strength, goes to society forgives the dismantling of institutions for managed democracy. Phase B, 2000s to 2010s, resource rent as a weapon. A key feature of the Russian Federation is that the state is largely funded by energy rents. In 2024, oil and gas provided about 30% of federal revenues. It was around 50% in 2011 to 2014. This allows the regime to buy loyalty, social payments, stability, strengthen security forces, siloviki, build a propaganda machine, finance war longer than it might seem from the outside. Quote, the richer, the bolder. End quote. Steps of aggression as testing limits. Step 1. Chechnya, 1999. War as a tool for mobilization and intimidation. Step 2. Georgia, 2008. A test of how far force can go without a long-term price. Step 3. Crimea, 2014. The Rhineland moment. The first major violation of the post-war order to see if democracies will act or just express concern. Step 4. Full-scale invasion, 2022. By February 2026, the war continues, including massive attacks on energy infrastructure. How Russia fooled the West. Quote, we are for peace, but, end quote.
using talk of de-escalation to mask the creation of new facts through force. Gas as a sedative. Energy contracts became political dependencies. Nord Stream 2 was a tool of influence. You fear escalation, so we will escalate, playing on the West's fear of a great war to return to business as usual. Analogy, not identical but parallel. Analogy 1, economic effect as legitimacy, 1930s Germany versus 2000s Russia. Analogy 2, testing red lines with small steps, remilitarization, Anschluss, Sudetenland, versus Georgia, Crimea, Donbass. Analogy 3, appeasement as an investment in catastrophe. The illusion that trade and integration make a dictator predictable actually fuels their appetite.
Interestingly, even as oil revenues fall, as reported by Reuters in 2025, the war does not stop. Regimes cut civilian spending to maintain the security apparatus. The danger of friendship with authoritarian growth. These three stories have one common nerve. An economic rise under authoritarian rule increases the risk of aggression because prosperity reinforces the regime's legitimacy. Unchecked power turns success into arrogance. Militarization becomes a logical extension of pride. Expansion is used to preserve power and immortalize the leader. Democratic nations must remember trade, technology, and investment handed to an authoritarian regime can become resources for a future war. The regime reads concessions not as peace, but as weakness. At first, it seems they are becoming modern. But when the regime gains weight, it may bite the hand that fed it, and sometimes go for the throat.